Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you might happen to be. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show here on the Nerd Caliber system where we talk really loudly. Let's move my mic down here. There we go. The show where we look at a recent piece of entertainment in the nerddom and we talk about what worked, what didn't work, themes, messages, tone, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and of course, to do that, we have to spoil the absolute heck out of it. Tonight, we're spoiling the heck out of the Snyder cut of Justice League. Dropped last Thursday, 1 week ago on HBO Max, 4 hours long. This will not be 4 hours long. In part because there's two of us tonight, and I'm Rodney Braun. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, a first person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter, and some other places as a tech journalist and other things. So, joining me tonight is you gotta catch him all, Byron, if you would.
Hello. Byron D0, Byron McNeil, um, contributing writer, um, video video content creator, social media guy for Nerd Caliber, and sometimes I'm an airbender.
There you go, and a Pokemon trainer. Or
Yes,
so.
I like to double dip.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm one of a handful of people in our circle who felt like sitting through 4 hours to watch a movie that we've already seen. So, glad to be here.
That's an interesting. That'll be part of our discussion. Is this a movie we've already seen? Um, so what we're talking about, and again, folks in the chat, love to have you ask any questions, make any observations. We do respond to our chat live when we get commentary and so on. So feel free to jump in there and say anything, within reason. We'll respond to it. If it's out of reason, we won't. Simple as that. Um, so what we do when we do these shows, we start off with, or I start off with a little bit of a description about where this intellectual property comes from. This is Justice League. We ain't got the time. That would make it a 4 hour show.
Fact.
The basic gist of it is it's a comic book. It's currently called Justice League. From the 60s through into the early 90s, it was called Justice League of America.
Mm-hmm.
With then side offshoots called Justice League International, and which ultimately they said, "Hey, look, this is really stupid. Let's just call it Justice League." Prior to that, it was actually called Justice Society, and that's actually a separate group, but some people get anyway. It's DC. They've been around forever. It's a long, long story. Um, Immediately to this movie and its original theatrical release back in 2017, which is kind of shocking that it was that long ago, um, was a direct sequel, or are direct sequels, because we're counting these as essentially two different movies, to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Hence the kind of idiotically long title of that movie, Dawn of
Ugh.
Justice.
That's not the only thing that was idiotic about that movie, but
That is absolutely true. Um, and at that time, and right up until pretty much the middle of the making of this movie, and actually almost the end of the making of this movie, when Batman v Superman came out and was absolutely destroyed by public and critics alike, Zack Snyder, who made this Snyder cut, obviously, was the man in charge of the entire future of DC Comics at Warner Brothers Films. Um, and then he had to leave the movie for absolutely, honestly, real personal reasons.
yep.
Whether or not that also unfortunately coincided with the fact that the people at executives at Warner Brothers were trying to get him out anyway, we'll never know for sure. There are certainly plenty of rumors about that, and pretty strong indications about that. The movie was released after a lot of it was reshot by Joss Whedon, which you know. and was a stinker. It wasn't as bad as Batman v Superman, but that's not a very high bar to cross, and it
Big
didn't cross it by much.
old stinky pile of poo.
It was a pretty stinky pile of poo, not quite as big or stinky a pile of poo as BVS.
Fair.
So within a year, I think, maybe even sooner than that, an internet trend started where people were pretty sure that Zack Snyder had a cut of this movie as the original director, and the internet hashtag, particularly the Twitter hashtag, released the Snyder cut started, and it became a snowball. When Warner Brothers created HBO Max, it had a streaming service that needed content. Um, there was clearly enough pent up demand for this, and so they said, "Hey, look, let's do it." Uh, what do you need to finish this? Snyder said, "I guess $70 million to finish some of the, you know, edits and special effects stuff that weren't done in my version." And they went, "Okay, go ahead." And he decided to literally put in everything he shot. So it's a 4 hour movie, and that's where we are. Last Thursday, if you were chomping at the bit to see the Snyder Cut version of Justice League, you got your chance. Miuk, welcome to the show. Assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, Miuc. Um, and again, you said yeah, so I'm assuming that's referencing something we're talking about here, which is, of course, the Snyder Cut, which is what we're spoiling. I always say this when somebody new jumps in. We're spoiling the heck out of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. If you haven't seen
Yep.
it and you hate spoilers, then you should probably be watching something else. But otherwise,
You're in the wrong place.
otherwise you're in the right place, and so hang around and chat. So our next stage is what worked, what you liked, what you didn't like, what worked, what didn't work. Um, Primarily as far as the movie as a story, a plot, structure, and so on. We'll get into themes and tones and so on later. We may hit on some of that in this part as well, but that's a different discussion. We'll have that later.
Yeah.
Um, this might be a long segment, folks. It's a 4 hour movie, and there's a lot of stuff that either worked or didn't, was so different than what was in the previous one. So it's put your seatbelts on. Byron, what worked? What did you like? What
Eh,
didn't work? What didn't you like? Hit us with it.
okay. Well, I will say first and foremost, I like the character moments. Like there was some really strong character moments in this film that
I believe what you're
really,
saying is there were character moments in
yeah,
this film.
yeah, yeah. I thought that's what I said.
Yeah, no, but because there weren't any in the original.
Yes. Oh yeah. In the original, no, no, no. There were next to none in the original. But yeah. Let's go on to the far superior version now.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were so many strong character moments in this film, and little tid. It was that was like one that was like one of the main things that stuck out to me watching this. Like the scene between Diana and Alfred at the Bat Cave. I was just like, okay, this works. Like I wasn't laughing out of control or anything, but I appreciated it.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Made both characters feel really human. Just seeing Gal Gadot and Jeremy Irons feed off each other like that was great. And the chemistry between Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot was really good too.
Now I will say that that came through in the first one for the most part.
Yes.
There were some really stupid things that Whedon added that made it more flirtatious.
Yeah.
But yes, so yeah, it is more prevalent in this, and it's a better relationship.
Absolutely. It felt more platonic, and Ben Affleck as Batman is probably one of the best choices one of the best decisions that came out of this whole project,
Yep.
because he just he has that swagger up. He has that swagger of a Playboy billionaire down to a T, and I can't praise his performance enough. Same thing with Gal Gadot. Like she is Wonder Woman. I just every like even in '84, I loved seeing her
Yeah.
in the getup. I love seeing her perform the character, even with that horrendous script. Uh,
And while that's not the topic of the show,
yeah.
folks, spoiler alert, it was bad.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah. I was. I think Henry Cavill is a decent Superman. Like he just needs the right script, and as much as I did enjoy this film as a whole, Henry, like he hasn't had this chance to make Superman his own yet, and that was definitely just one of those, this wasn't the vehicle to give him that segue. Got to give all the props to Cyborg and to Cyborg's next door because
yep. Ray Fisher,
he knocked out the part.
and he was given a chance to be an actor, as
Yes,
opposed to given a chance to be a Tin
MacGuffin.
Woodsman. Oh yeah, or MacGuffin. Yeah, just a a nothing burger in the previous cut.
Well, that's because the director wasn't a racist, but yeah,
I,
diet racist.
Whedon's been accused of a lot of things. I don't know that anybody's accused him of being a racist that I heard of.
Well, I mean diet racist, but still.
All right.
Yep. Um. Yeah, he was. He had like it was just great seeing the angst that one would have in Vic Stone's position after losing everything. And like one thing that I really appreciated more so in from New 52, which didn't do a lot of things right, was Cyborg's angst after being put in the situation as like no longer a human. Do stuff. He can't do the stuff he once enjoyed anymore, and he has the. But eventually, and it was little things like when he was interacting with in Diana when she's like, "But I need you to save the world," and he's just like, "Fuck the world."
Yeah. Yeah. He had so
I did chuckle a little bit from that line.
it was a funny line. The problem with the previous cut is that attitude was his only personality.
Yeah,
Even when he joined up with them, you had there was no reason that you were given for him to sort of change his mind, um, other than the fact that his dad had been abducted, um,
yeah,
and that was it. That here you actually get a character progression, a character growth from you know I'm hurting. I'm in a really bad spot because of my dad and mom's death and all this other stuff, and obviously what had been done to him. Um, to all right, I'm hurting, but other people are hurting and need help, and I can do it. Um, and again, absolute, kudos to um, I can't remember the actor's name. Morgan, something Morgan,
Joe Morton.
Joe Morton.
Yes, fantastic as Dr. Stone.
uh, and the fact that he actually has, again, also a character arc, and is given the speech that is the primary motivator to get Vic to realize he has the potential to be something truly amazing and to help people.
Yeah,
Um,
like he was right. Like him and Phil Morris are two of my favorite depictions of Dr. Stone. So
yep,
two outstanding, two outstanding black actors who made the character their own.
yep. And again, I will watch anything Joe Morton's in. I think he's just fantastic.
Indeed.
But yeah, so you continue with things that you liked, or is it
Uh
time to move on to
oh
dislikes?
no, I still have I haven't yeah, I haven't talked about Ezra Miller as Barry Allen yet.
Yep.
He it was great to see him have more to do in this film too, instead of just being comic relief. You know, one thing that I absolutely hated about the original cut was like how basically he was written more as like a punk or a weenie, and it's just like, dude, you're the fastest man alive. You do more. Like that line where he's like, I just push people. I'm like, no, he doesn't just push people.
Whedon rewriting his entire character to make him a coward and useless.
Yeah,
Oh my God! It was bad watching it. In retrospect, it was awful.
awful.
I have
Yes.
no idea what he has against the concept of the Flash. I mean, he literally wrote the Flash to be a useless character.
Yeah, he did. Well, no, he.
Just like
I think he wrote him more to be a clown.
well, yeah, but I mean, useless except for comic relief. Yes, he was the clown, and for some reason, in Whedon's world, the clown can't also be a hero.
Mm.
I'm sure I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but I'm gonna go Kashao. Welcome to the show, oi! And again, the warning: we're spoiling the Snyder cut of Justice League in our discussion of what worked, what didn't, and so on. If you haven't seen it and you hate spoilers, please go watch something else. If you don't mind spoilers or you have seen it, stay and chat. Um, so
Yeah,
Ezra Miller, Flash.
yeah, definitely. And Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I don't hate him as Aquaman. He definitely has the angst that I've come to associate with Aquaman. Who I mean, there was definitely still the bro-ness that he brings to that role.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yes, I mean he's Jason Momoa. He's always going to be pretty much a bro.
Yeah,
But
I will say though, I'm glad that they got rid of that awkward scene on the plane where he's sitting on Wonder Woman's lasso.
yeah, yeah. I thought in the context of the original release, it was one of the few humanizing moments for him. In this release, it's not even in there, and there's so much other stuff in there that is that make him a very human character, and not just the angsty stuff where he's complaining to Mara or anybody else. Um, it's all of the rest of his interaction
Yeah,
with the other members of the Justice League. Um,
especially his introduction, like where he's talking with Bruce about forming a team, just like, yeah, Superman just died. What chance do I have?
yeah, good point. I'm thinking more along the lines of the team stuff once they come together. I think, like the fact that they don't, they completely got rid of Whedon's pointless, Aqua Bro going after Cyborg and being suspicious of him.
Mm.
Um, and yes, he is cautious about an awful lot of the really crazy things that they decide to do, but he also is very concerned about Victor, who, at the point where his dad dies, had just lost his dad. Now, so much better character writing, as you said way at the beginning. Um,
Yes. It getting rid of of Whedon's propensity for snark in every single character that he writes made all the difference for me in this film as far as enjoying it, I think. Um, and if Whedon never does another thing in Hollywood, I will be satisfied.
yep,
Yeah. And now I guess I can. This is a good jump off point for the things that I didn't really care for. First and foremost, I hate the fact that it took 4 hours to tell this story.
yep,
First and foremost, because yeah, it's cool that I mean, you can say the same thing about something like Endgame, but Avengers Endgame earned it. They earned that length. They like this was like 10 years of build up to reach this point. They absolutely earned the right to make this to make this to put this pin in their in a decades long storyline
yeah.
to
But also, it was just a smidge over 3 hours.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It was. and compared to Justice League, where it's just like, okay, cool, you have a lot of ideas, Zach. I'm glad you were able to put all in there, but maybe I guess maybe if this film would have happened more organically, like Endgame, I'd probably be a little more forgiving about it.
Yeah,
But this was his this was his initial vision. He wanted to like do this right. He wanted to do this while it was still fresh in everyone's minds, and I just feel like he didn't uh, he didn't earn it.
yeah, or the entire yes. I was going to say the entire DC movie, universe up to that point, but realistically, almost all of it was either Snyder's work or Snyder's influence, as up to this point, of the, you know, when he left the original movie, he was in control of the DC universe at Warner Brothers. So
Yeah.
yeah, and you're right, it didn't earn it. Um,
Uh,
other
yeah. I'm generally not a fan of grim dark Superman. Like even like the fact that they still kept the fight scene against Superman pretty much the same. It like it still made me roll my eyes because I'm kind of just like, is this really like, do we really need this scene in the first place? Like it just, I feel like they could have had the resurrection without him without him mopping the floor with everyone else. They could have just been like, oh, he's not. They could have been like, he doesn't wake up until the last moment, and then comes in and saves the day. Kind of like how they did in the comics.
yeah, but that so clearly what Snyder's vision was, this was going to set up a movie, Justice League 2 and Justice League 3, which were ultimately going to be how, I'm guessing in Justice League 2, it's going to be sort of like Empire Strikes Back. They all lose.
Mm.
Darkseid wins, and Batman's vision of the future starts to come true. And so to do that, that's why he added that flash of the future vision to Cyborg as he's about to activate the mother box to resurrect him. So not only did Batman see, because of the stuff that Flash had done back in Batman v Superman, a vision of the dystopian future, Cyborg sees Superman going evil and why it happens. And so then they resurrect him, and Superman is fighting them, and they're all going, well, damn it, we just did exactly what we shouldn't have done. We're all screwed. And so it sets up that tension for what will ultimately be, or what was supposed to be in his mind, and supposedly still is in his mind, whether or not Warner Brothers has any interest in it whatsoever. Um, the next two movies, which will take Darkseid ruining the Earth and them trying to fix it with time travel or whatever.
Oh,
Um,
and that actually reminds me going back. One thing I really like, I the fan service. I love like all the fan service in this film. Like the moment Steppenwolf found the anti-life equation, just like, ah! And a little bit of that, and the cosmic treadmill, because any reference to the cosmic treadmill, I'm on board for. Uh,
yeah, that the a better look at the Green Lantern from back in the ancient
yes.
times. Um, Ares, you
Oh
know,
yes.
and as somebody in one of the videos I've watched, with that almost identical cheesy ass mustache that Sir Patrick had, when David Thewlis played him in the original Wonder Woman movie. It's like, I wonder if that was deliberate, because I don't remember we ever saw Ares' face in the original cut.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I agree. All the fan service is fantastic.
Yes.
But
Um.
that was my take on why that fight scene had to happen, because it had to set up their even though he comes back and becomes a hero, clearly it had to set up their ongoing concern that they still, in some fashion, really screwed up by
Yeah.
bringing him back.
Uh, Another thing that I really didn't care for, the omission of the line that Superman makes, that Whedon put in when he comes in to take out Steppenwolf, where he's just like I forget how he goes at it, but something along the lines of, I know he's like, I know a thing or two about truth, but I also care about justice.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, the line was, and I'm a big fan of Justice.
yes,
It's a good Whedon line. I liked just as much when all he does is he stops the axe with his shoulder and just goes, not impressed. Um, both
I
of
don't know.
them are, the second one is obviously way more arrogant.
Yeah,
But the first one is, even when he said it, I cringed a little because it was so cheesy. Yes,
yeah.
it's Superman, but that was a pretty cheesy line.
Yeah, I just feel like that was the most Superman thing. That was like the most Superman thing about that entire franchise.
Yeah, yeah, and that is true. That it was the most comic book accurate thing you could imagine Superman saying.
Uh, Trying to think what else was.
Well, so I'm
It
gonna.
was, yeah. Honestly, I could, if I point out every little detail that I did and didn't like, we'd be here all night. And
Yeah, and again, it's a 4 hour movie. There's a lot of stuff in there.
yeah,
You'll probably remember things as I'm going on.
yep,
So what I liked, I'm just going to reiterate a lot of the things that you said. The characterization was so much better
yes.
because some of the characters had characters. Um,
The T, the T, you're doing it T wrong.
that was, I mean, I think Alfred's characterization, Jeremy Irons is perfect
Yes,
anyway, but
absolutely.
that did add to it. It added to Gal Gadot's. In fact, it's one of the few scenes where Gal Gadot gets character interaction in this version, and that is one of my minor quibbles. Is that she's now granted, while her stuff with Whedon is cringy at times, she is given a little bit more to work with Whedon, and seemingly less so with the Snyder cut. Um, Other than almost non-verbal, like the whole discovery of the cave below the temple, where all of the history of Darkseid is laid out, or his interaction on Earth anyway. Um, it's just a scene of her staring at basically cave paintings or what Byzantine mosaics more like, and going ooh ah. Um, but everybody, for the most part, gets character, particularly Ray Fisher, particularly Barry Allen. Um, you know,
The
Joss
fist bump at
Whedon.
the end finally made sense.
Well, there's the other thing. All right, let's get to that. I said this in my spoiler-free review. The We as viewers of the original Justice League theatrical release had to connect plot holes, so many of them in this movie, to try to make it make sense, that we should have been given writer's credit on that goddamn movie. Um, this, for the most part, fixes all of those. Some of them are really long explanations. Some of them are completely changing or reinstating, because I know he didn't bring back. I don't think I haven't read that he brought back Kieran Hines to redo any um, of Steppenwolf's dialogue. So that must have been in there originally. And suddenly Steppenwolf has a reason for being on Earth. He knows the mother boxes are here. The
Yes.
reason he knows is because Superman's death, literally his scream when he's dying, his dying cry, activated them. We get to see that. So the very reason why he's here is never explained in the first one. We get to see it right out of the bat. why he's so damned interested in it, other than, oh, I got beat the first time. He didn't get beat the first time.
Darkseid did.
Darkseid did. And he did something stupid somewhere. We don't find out what, but he did something stupid somewhere that makes him on Darkseid's crap list.
Yep.
And he's got 50,000 worlds to conquer before he's able to appear before Darkseid again. That's a little, but anyway. So he even Steppenwolf is given character motivation, and his story connects a ton of the just gaping story gaps, plot holes, whatever you want to call them, in the first movie.
Yes.
That was such a relief for me. I absolutely adore that, and some of those things are literally just comments that one character says to another. Or longer comments like Silas Stone's, tape-recorded soliloquy to Victor. It's not a super long scene. It explains Victor, what Victor's potential is, and how Silas really does see him as, somebody who has, greatness in him and loved him, or loves him because he's dead at that point. And it worked, and it was, total maybe a couple of minutes. Suddenly we know a lot more about how Cyborg is going to do what he's going to do. We know why he's going to do it. It just anyway. And because Whedon kept the general plot structure while changing details, and ultimately changing the ending, some of the things that were in that first movie absolutely made no sense, or were just bad movie making. Like they resurrect Superman, the mother box gets blown off, lands on a police car.
The reasoning for bringing him back made a lot more sense too.
The reasoning exactly, but in the original one, they lands on a police car and everybody's distracted by Oh, there goes Superman flying away, and boom tube comes down. Steppenwolf goes, ha, last box, and you're like, really? That's it? That's how they lose the last box? Somebody doesn't keep an eye on it? Oh. In this version, where Silas picks it up, takes it to the lab, it ultimately leads to a big conflict, Silas's death, him sacrificing himself to do something that they can use. It is these actions further the plot, not just, oh, Steppenwolf shows up and gets the box. And so much of that, like, here's another, Whedon thing. Why would you take out the most impressive scene in the entire movie, Barry saving everybody by running faster than light and reversing time, and changing what is ultimately a movie that raised the stakes to a level that, the first one didn't even have any stakes. This raises it to they lose. The Earth dies. And Barry, who is suddenly... It's never explained how he does this. It just... He sees this wave of destruction coming towards him. He's already running really fast anyway, and he starts phasing. He puts his hand out and starts vibrating so fast that around him he's stopping time as it washes behind him, and he realizes what's going on. And in that, I can't even call it a microsecond, he realizes what he needs to do. He needs to run faster than he's ever run before, faster than the speed of light.
The one rule. Breaking
his one rule and reversing time. And it's one of the most majestic, amazing things in any. It's right up there with Avengers Assemble.
It's
that cool.
It really is. I will say this much though. I got this. This is kind of a deep cut. It's a huge callback to Crisis on Infinite Earths when Barry sacrifices himself.
Yes. Yeah, that is true.
Deep cut.
Luckily, in this case, he doesn't sacrifice himself. But yes, it is that as well. But to think that then Joss Whedon would cut all of that out and rewrite the end to have the coward Barry Allen that he has now created by having the changes in the middle in the first fight with Steppenwolf and under Gotham Bay,
Yep.
to go and save a random Russian family in an area that we've already been told in the movie is completely abandoned, by just pushing the truck really fast. Joss Whedon hates Barry Allen or hates Ezra Miller or I don't know what. Anyway,
He probably liked Wally West better, which
well, the character fits Wally better. I mean, it's more of a Wally character. Wally West was always the wise ass. Actually, it even fits better Impulse. Because
absolutely.
Barry clearly has ADHD. And Impulse his name is Impulse. It's not just about the fact that
Barry's
he can move
more
fast.
of a nerd.
Right. But anyway, so among the things I liked is the return to that original ending. Just so much more amazing. So characterization,
Cosmic treadmill,
story, yeah, it'll happen. Characterization, story, villainy, plot, all of that. I'm never a particularly big fan of Snyder's washed out, grim dark color palette. You can't even call it a color palette. I picked this particular shot, which is going up on the screen now, of Mera. This is actually in the movie. And I get they're underwater, so, colors are going to be kind of washed out anyway. But, this is not the black and white version. This is in this current movie. She has red hair, folks. You can maybe tell that parts of her uniform are green. Maybe. But, boy, you can't tell there's any red hair there. But as opposed to particularly the last quarter or third of the Whedon release and that, like, horrid, poisonous, red techno smear garbage. Oh. It was literally painful to look at.
Very much.
So I like the fact that red is gone. And if that means we get the typical Snyder, washed out color palette, okay, we're used to it now from Snyder movies. Other things I particularly like about it, the redesigns of Steppenwolf, the change to his voice, the design of Darkseid.
Yep.
Desaad. The design of Desaad, even the little bit we saw of Granny Goodness. I mean, that, all of Apocalypse, whatever we saw of it, looked really impressive. And the people or the beings from it. What I didn't like, other than stuff we've already touched on, in commenting on the things that you were mentioning. Another thing I like, because you had said this about, but I got to get this line because I like this line. Aquaman goes from being Aqua Chad to just Aqua Bro. I'm fine with him being an Aqua Bro. In the first movie, he was an Aqua Chad. So, other things I don't like is hold on, turn it. There we go. Other things I don't like is the length. I mean, this is a 3-hour movie that really didn't need to be 4 hours. And the things that didn't need to be 4 hours were Snyderisms. The way overuse of slow-mo. There's no reason to have the first time we see Lois Lane going to the memorial for Superman and giving the guard there, the police guard, the coffee that she does, to have almost that entire scene until she gets to the guard done in slow-mo. We get it. She's sad. It's raining. You don't need that. And then you don't need the music playing behind it. It's the second thing I didn't like. There's nothing wrong with lyrical song scoring occasionally if it makes sense. It works way better if it's diegetic, if it's created by or caused by somebody in the actual movie or show, like Guardians of the Galaxy or Lloyd Dobler and Say Anything and so on. But when you have one Leonard Cohen song after another as part of the score, just so you can have a slow-mo walk twice, Aquaman walks off a pier into a wave to a Leonard Cohen song. One of them just before, diegetically in the movie, a bunch of Nordic women walk down to the shore and sing some sort of goddamn hymn to his sweater. I was watching
it. It was kind of funny.
It was just stupid. And it was one of those things.
So made it funny.
You took out the slow-mo. If you reduce the slow-mo in anything that was not story-important slow-mo, Barry Allen moving fast. Sometimes Superman moving fast, too, if that's what it takes. But if you took out all of that other slow-mo, took out the pointless singing, took out the repetitive scenes, there's 2 scenes of like I said, Aquaman walking into a wave. There's 2 scenes of Steppenwolf telling Desaad what he's found on Earth. Then there's a 3rd scene in which he finally says, hey, guess what? I found the anti-life equation. You know, this thing that we've lost all this time, it was this planet. That one needed to be in. The first 2 really didn't. Well, maybe the first one, because that's where we get his description of why his motivation is there. You know, why he wants to get back into Darkseid's good graces. But there's one scene that's completely redundant. He says not exactly, the words are different, but he says exactly the same message about, yep, still looking for the mother boxes, or the last mother box. You know, the parademons can smell it. It's like, yeah, well, you told me that last time, jerk. Take that scene out. Take one of the Aquaman wave scenes out. Take out the pointless singing. Take out the pointless, and it's a 3-hour movie. You right there. You know, it's an endgame length movie.
Yes.
And now, having said that, I didn't mind the length. I mean, I watched it at home. I wasn't going to watch it in the theater. Well, it's not in theaters, but had it been, you know, and I stopped at one point somewhere in the middle and went, "Hey, bathroom." And I had stuff to drink and snacks and whatever. So it can be viewed that way, and I didn't mind the length being like I'm catching up on a 2-part movie or something. Other stuff that I didn't. That's mostly what I didn't like about it. One thing that I kind of didn't like about not the movie, but the fact that it showed me some things. Joss Whedon has fallen off the truck hard among fandoms.
Good riddance.
And at this point, yeah, it's pretty clear that that's a good riddance. And even still, I was looking at an appreciation of Serenity, the movie Serenity, earlier, and just blown away at how amazing that movie is, how amazing the first Avengers is. And then, he makes something like this, and the humor that's in this movie is still pretty funny, which means that some of the humor, or a decent amount of the humor that was in the original release, was in the original script. It was stuff that Snyder had written and had filmed. And the stuff that was taken out, because Snyder never used a bit of Whedon's footage, he made that absolutely clear, was the worst humor in that movie. And as much as Whedon has fallen out of grace as a person, as a director, as a human being, this made, even more so than watching the original version, Whedon as a creator just drop out of my eyes.
I can definitely see that.
And as somebody who still appreciates Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly and Serenity, that hurts. To see somebody that I like that much clearly become somebody this awful at what he does.
I did want to add one more thing to the not like list.
Mm-hmm.
The scene in the dog shot with Barry Allen. That was a bit on the cringe side.
So there were things about it that were really cool to look at.
Oh, absolutely.
Going through the window thing was just awesome. But yes, well, first off, introducing a character that we don't even know who she is and has nothing whatsoever to do with the rest of the show, of the movie is pointless. We've already seen what Barry's abilities are. We saw it in the scene where he meets Bruce. Um, and we've seen it in Bruce studying him with the footage, the liquor store or convenience store footage. Um, Auto Pablo, quick question: you going to watch Godzilla v Kong when it's released? I know Mecha Godzilla will be in the movie as well. Yeah, they did just release that in one of the
All
trailers or
right.
footage. Yes, that is the topic 2 weeks from tonight.
Mm.
So April 8th will be Godzilla versus Kong. So if you're a fan and you've watched it before April 8th, check on into the show. Um, but yeah, you're about to talk about the cringe.
Yeah, it was. I just feel like I I don't know, like just him touching her face in that way was just like, dude, really?
Yep.
Like, at least have him introduce himself or something, dude. This is 2021. Well, yeah, this is 2021. We don't need, we're not in 1985 where that's acceptable.
Yep. Yeah, we've got to get. I don't know whether Snyder decided not to rewrite that, whether it was written back in 2015 or 16. Um, when well, actually, that's not true. I mean, the Me Too movement was around, was starting right around then, so he should have
Oh
known better.
yes.
He should have known better.
Mm,
So there's no excuse for that.
at all.
And it is kind of telling that Auto Pablo, loved the channel. Thank you very much. Um, it is kind of telling that he thinks it's okay. One of the things that he has Barry Allen doing with this ability that he can move so fast, he is essentially invisible to the people, that he is interacting with that can't move that fast, is inappropriately touch them. Um, in a creepy way. Quicksilver inappropriately touched an awful lot of prison guards in, Days of Future Past. But he did it, one, to help Magneto escape, and then two, because they're prison guards and it's funny. It wasn't anything, not even really sexual, but certainly romantic in Barry's mind. And yeah, you're right. That's a good. But that was super cringy. So we got that cringe, but we lost the Barry lands on Wonder Woman's boobs cringe. So yeah,
Take your poison.
yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much it for anything that I didn't like about the movie. And sort of like you, there were a lot of little individual nitpicks. There were some times when the CG, despite the $70 million, didn't quite stand up.
Yeah.
But again, if we're doing the balance, Henry Cavill's real face.
Yes. No CG
No
mustache.
CG mustache removal. So yeah, um, it, it, so that's pretty much it. As far as likes and dislikes, we may wind up remembering some things as we jump back in.
Oh yes.
But now let's talk about tone, which is black and white practically. I mean
Mm.
movie tone, theme, message, and so on. Was there a sort of coherent theme to this?
Yeah, if there was, I didn't pick up on it because I was kind of just observing the spectacle of it all. Like, my experience with Zack Snyder as a director is he's all flash and no substance.
Yep. and for the most part, and that's true, and that's a problem. That was a problem with Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
In Batman v Superman, you can see that there was at one point a movie that would have been probably the most deep and substantive thing Snyder has made, which was supposed to be a look at how Batman reacted to the people of Earth reacted to the effects of suddenly realizing that there's aliens among them when one of them gets in a fight with another bunch of others, and almost destroys the planet. Um, and with the hearings, the Senate hearings, and all of that, you can see that that movie was there in Snyder's mind, and then it was, oh, you know what? This has got to be set up for the Justice League, and that I think ruined what could have been Zack Snyder's most complex movie. This is not a particularly complex movie.
Mm-mm.
It's way more complicated as far as plot goes, um, which again isn't saying much than the original theatrical release because there were so many plot holes that it didn't have one.
Mm.
Um, but I agree. I don't think that I mean Snyder is not known for deep message or theme, and if he is known for message, it's kind of hammering it home, quite literally in Sucker Punch with a lobotomy probe.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say that I don't know if I'd say it was so much a message or a theme, but something that I picked up from this is kind of what I picked up from Watchmen. It's like he only understands these properties on the surface level.
I think that's true.
Yeah, like you especially see that with Watchmen, where it's just like oh cool, these are just superheroes who are doing real world stuff like killing people and swearing. It's like that's not what it's about. And then
Well, I'll give it. This is another one, director's cut thing. If you watch the extended cut of Watchmen, and I personally like the theatrical release of Watchmen, but I agree that it's a lot more flash than substance. If you watch the extended
pun
cut,
intended.
he gets a lot more into because he uses almost everything that was in the Alan Moore graphic novel, in the Alan Moore comic series. Um, so more of what Alan Moore had as messages and so on is in the extended cut than
You're just knocking it out of the park with these puns tonight, huh?
it's what I do. Um, but yeah, no, yeah. He is mostly about the surface, about what looks right. I will say there's one thing, and I think this is consistent over all of his, probably all of his work, but certainly over all of his Snyderverse DC work. Um, and that is all actions have consequences. And I
Oh,
think,
absolutely.
and all of them have to some extent some kind of negative consequence that has to be dealt with. Um, Now he focuses, I think, in a lot of cases, way too much on the negative consequences are the important stuff. So let's make that the drama, and to some extent, I understand that. But that's what like every superhero movie he's ever worked with is about.
Yeah.
You do things, there are probably going to be negative consequences, and you have to deal with them. And that's kind of I mean, that's Harry Potter.
Hmm.
To some extent, that's Avatar. Um, one of Aang's biggest lessons to learn is that his actions or his inactions have consequences. Um, so it's not a bad message, but it's sort of this is always what my message is going to be whenever I make one of these movies, and that doesn't have to be the case. Um,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Although I see like the ending scene with like where Martha gets the house back. that's one of the few instances of a positive consequence where it's just like, yes, because that's proof that Bruce is not is all in on this. Like he's not just doing it. He's not just doing one. It's not just a one and done thing. Like he's saying to he's saying not just to Clark but to the rest of the team, I'm ready to trust you guys.
Right. And it's interesting that, so yes, it's a positive, but it also implies that one would assume that Bruce knows exactly what's going on in Martha Kent's life and in Lois Lane's life because, one, he has the wherewithal to know all of this, and two, he's super dedicated to. That brought up another dislike. I'll bring up the. He's super dedicated to the idea that he owes Superman. So why would he let the house go into receivership in the first place? Maybe he didn't know about it. That's a possibility. That strikes me as completely unbelievable. Um, but that's one of those things where, okay, this doesn't quite fit, Bruce Wayne's character that we know, and certainly that he's been presented as here. I mean, they keep saying, "It's what's your superpower? I'm rich." Um,
Still one of the best jokes.
that is, and again, that was obviously a Zack Snyder's joke.
Yes.
And the how did you get the bank to forgive the mortgage or whatever he said? It's like, I bought the bank, um, or sell you the mortgage, so you bought the bank. Those were good jokes. So the one thing that I forgot, Martian Manhunter.
Oh yes.
So in this version, when instead of in the Snyder or in the Whedon version, when Martha Kent meets Lois Lane, it's at Lois still working at the Daily Planet or back to working at the Daily Planet, and it's a nice brightly lit break room at the newspaper, and they're sitting there having coffee and they're having the conversation. In this one, Martha shows up at Lois's door, and Lois hasn't been to work since Superman died. She's deeply grieving. And so Martha and she have a nice little moment over tea. And then as you walk out, you find out, oh, nope, glowing red eyes, and he changes. That was Martian Manhunter all along. It's like, all right, kind of cool. That's a good way to introduce Martian Manhunter. I get it. That's neat. At the very end, the very last, just before the credits scene, Martian Manhunter shows up to Bruce's, super cool lakeside retreat villa. Very falling water type, building. And it just introduces himself, and it's the clumsiest scene.
Oh God, yes. Gods, yes.
Cringy, I like that. I've heard a lot of people who didn't like the design of Martian Manhunter. I like the design. I thought it was pretty cool. But just the introduction was, Bruce's reaction was almost what it really would have been, which was like, I'm sorry, who are you again, and why do I care? Literally, it's like some guy shows up at your door and says, hi, I'm another person who's, going to give you a lot of money, and by the way, my name is, and like, okay.
As he winks at the camera.
It almost was a wink to the camera moment. It almost was that blatant. It was just the clumsiest.
God, yes.
Which didn't need to happen. Either come up with a way within the story to introduce Martian Manhunter, or don't. Save it for another time and leave that Martha bit as a tease. But clearly he's setting it up that Martian Manhunter is supposed to be in his, in theory, Justice League 2, which we're not ever going to see. Yeah, so anyway, that was another thing that really bothered me about this, that last scene. Out of a movie that otherwise mostly worked really well with Snyder's direction and writing. Then we got that, and it's like, and the completely pointless vision of the future. Leto's Joker does not need to exist in this.
or any.
or any or any version. I don't particularly mind his Joker in Suicide Squad, but it's definitely the least Joker of all. This take on that is worse because it's, as everybody's pointed this out, it's a little bit Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. It's a little bit Heath Ledger's Joker. It's a lot more Jared Leto's Suicide Squad Joker. It, you know, it doesn't know what Joker it wants to be. And then the group that he has gathered together to fight, against Superman in this dystopian, dark side ruled future, is just like, why them? Because you could get these actors. That's why. And it's so obvious that Mara's on the team. Okay, and Deathstroke. Okay. Obviously, you couldn't get Jesse Eisenberg because the logical thing would be Lex Luthor in the Luthor armor, because they have worked together in the past. Anyway, yeah, that was dumb. The Martian Manhunter thing was just cringe.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything other than, and the joke of the tone. Yeah, the tone is gray. Kind of the tone of the movie, although, it's got that at the end, that fist pumping F yeah moment, and nothing else he's done has that. Man of Steel ended with Superman doing something horrible. Batman v Superman ended with the death of Superman. Now, here we finally get a, yeah, Barry, save everybody. So I love that.
Booyah.
There's a booyah moment that is pretty rare in Snyder movies. So it wasn't overall as gray in tone as the previous two,
which is fair.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's our messages. So given the fact, Byron, that it's 4 hours long, would you recommend this? Who would you recommend it to, if you would? So on.
It's hard for me to recommend this one just because of the length. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to stand by my Facebook status, which was, it's a beautiful mess of a film. So it's just, there are a lot of things that work. I feel there were more things that didn't. Yeah. I mean, if you really want to see what might have been, watch this movie. But since it's ultimately going to go nowhere, I can't recommend to everyone.
Yeah. I'll buy that. I think it works more than it doesn't. So I would say it is a beautiful, I wouldn't say mess. Let's see, what would be, I can't think of the term, jumble. It's a beautiful jumble of things.
A gumbo.
It's a gumbo.
I hate okra and shrimp, so.
Yeah, and except for the fact that gumbo is spicy, and there ain't spicy in anything Snyder does. I would recommend it to DC dedicated fans, and particularly if you were super disappointed with the original Justice League. If you can take the 4 hour length.
Bonus points if you're on unemployment.
Or a freelancer and, make your own schedule or whatever. You could watch it on 2 hours on a Saturday and 2 hours on a Sunday if you want, and boom, you're done. But again, it's a commitment. There's no question about it. But it so improves on the original that I think for anybody who wanted the original to be good, this will satisfy you however you can consume it, if you can consume it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much it. Thank you, folks, for the chat. The people who were asking questions, making comments, and Pablo, glad you like the show. Next week, we are going to be doing Mushoku Tensei. It's an anime called Jobless Reincarnation. If
Beautifully animated.
It's beautifully animated. It's amazingly written. It has characterizations that make this, where the characters are way deeper than they were in previously, or even in previous Snyderverse movies, look like cardboard cutouts. It's an anyway. It's worth your time if you've seen it. Please tune in next week, or if you don't mind spoilers about anime that you'll never watch, just listen to me and hopefully Byron, my other anime fan,
Yeah.
just gush over this thing and talk about its problems. It's got problems. There's no question about that. But anyway, that's next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, as usual. Byron, if you would give us a goodbye.
Good night, everyone. So glad I got to talk about this film.
Me too. It's been sitting there boiling for about a week. And again, for me, Rodney Brown, goodbye. Please stay safe, folks. Fingers crossed that Biden's promise is met, and that we he literally doubles his goal. We're going to have 200 million vaccines in arms by the first 100 days.
Here's hoping.
Movie theaters have announced that they're starting to open. Let's hope people get vaccinated in time to be able to get in there. But even if you do go, until probably late summer, when ideally most of the country that's willing to get vaccinated, you idiots, get vaccinated, is willing to, or has been, continue to wear your mask, please. Continue to wash your hands. Continue to keep your social distance. Stay safe. At this point, when we're this close to having this thing behind us, don't get hurt.
And don't mess it up for the rest of us.
And don't mess it up for the rest of us. Some of us are old enough that it might not go well. Just saying. Anyway, thank you all for being with us again, and we'll see you ideally next week or next Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Nerd Week Live. Already putting in some really interesting stuff, and just just throw this out as an advance in memoriam. I always screw up her name.
Jessica.
Exactly. The wonderful character actress from Archer, from so many other, Jessica Walter.
God. Yes, Jessica Walter. Also of Arrested Development.
Of Arrested Development and so on, passed away today at the age of 80. We'll have an in memoriam.
I had no idea she was 80.
Yeah. Oh, sharp as a tack, that woman.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll have an in memoriam, but we'll also have a lot of really big, interesting news, casting news, new movies, etc. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Otherwise, we'll see you next Thursday for Mushoku Tensei.